Time now for sports on 104.7 The Cave. Here's Ned Reynolds.
Ned Reynolds, Mike the Intern, back in the studio, halfway point of the week. We're at the All-Star break. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Home Run Derby, but I thought Pujols getting in beyond the first round was pretty awesome. We watched that from Dallas International Airport at the Cantina Laredo, drinking margaritas and cheering on Albert.
I was drinking grapefruit juice, I think.
But that was really cool. And then, of course, last night we had the All-Star game.
Well, both of them, both the Home Run Derby and the All-Star game, are really morphing into made-for-TV events. But I thought last night's game was pretty good. They played well. There was good defense in it, some very good pitching, especially by the American League that held the National League hitless for the final 7 innings of the game. That was pretty good. Of course, that's going to happen in a one-game all-star set because you're getting the very best pitchers. But the stage was set by that double play that Tim Anderson of the Chicago White Sox and Andres Jimenez of the Cleveland Guardians turned in to get Manny Machado on a double play. That was a big-time defensive play. Miking the players, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Most of the players were very agreeable, and they had some pretty good dialogue about them, but I'm not really a big fan of that, and I know that Clayton Kershaw isn't. He was very quick with his interview before starting the game. The thing that bothered me the most, Mike, about the game was the fact that I do not like everybody looking the same in this game. They're all wearing the same uniforms. And the National League had the gold. It's their teams are on there, but it's all in gold. It isn't the same. Same with the American League. All the same uniforms. Their insignias are there, but that's it. No, that's not the way the All-Star game, in my opinion, should be played. Put your home and road uniforms on for the visiting team. American League was visitors. Let's see their road uniforms. You never see them ordinarily. But no, that's not the case, and you don't see the National League. It just was not right, in my opinion. As far as the game is concerned, pretty good game. Giancarlo Stanton with a monstrous home run. He turns out to be the most valuable player. So from that standpoint, it was, I think, probably an acceptable baseball game for an all-star game, that is. But I wish they'd modify things. You mentioned the Home Run Derby, and Juan Soto won it. He said he was going to win it, and he did. But Albert being in there, here's the deal that I wonder a little bit about. Not being a professional athlete, I don't know how they're affected. Obviously, they are in great shape. But when you come to this Home Run Derby, that's an altogether different rhythm that they're in. It's swing after swing after swing.
Oh, Albert got gassed out. You could see.
He was tired.
Especially during that 1-minute bonus in that first round. You could see it because he popped off probably 5 real quick. And then you could see him going, and I could see it. I've been to batting cages a million times.
This is in rapid motion, and that's not the way you take batting practice ordinarily. It's not that quick. And you're not hitting home runs. You're not trying for home runs. In Albert's case, I hope that didn't have any detrimental effect on him. I had a guy send me a text. He said, boy, he looks more like he's 60 than he does 42 because he was slowing up considerably. And so were the others. It affects the rhythm a little bit. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of this, but it is what it is, and it is on television, and the fans do like it. It is part of the All-Star Week, and, hey, more power to them.
Yeah, well, they seem to be taking another page out of the NFL book and making it as fancy as they possibly can.
That's exactly right.
Speaking of being fancy, it looks like as far as our professional Missouri teams, the Royals are probably going to be possibly getting rid of some people because it doesn't really matter for them, at least this season. The St. Louis Cardinals can do very well if they could get some pitching help, that's for sure.
They do need pitching. There's no question about the fact that the Cardinals are searching for at least one more starting pitcher, somebody who's going to help them, not somebody to just throw into the mix for 1 year, a loner player. But over and above that, I don't know whether or not there's anybody really available who's not going to cost the Cardinals an awful lot. You don't want to mortgage your future on something that is an if, and maybe. And that's what it is with the Cardinals. It's if, and maybe. That National League Central Division is very weak. It's either going to be the Brewers or the Cardinals. And I was telling an individual last night that it may be only one from that division. They may not have a wild card team. The record has to be pretty good to get in there.
Yeah, that's not great.
It's going to be very problematic to say the least. Well, do the Cardinals make a deal? I think they will. I hope they don't spend an awful lot of talent to get that deal, but they do have to get one. As far as the Royals are concerned, I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Benintendi is gone and maybe Whit Merrifield. These are guys who could be serviceable to another ball club. Zach Greinke, who's had a very good year for a 39-year-old pitcher, he could step in and fill the role for somebody. There are just so many possibilities. The trade deadline is still about a week and a half away, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a lot of action.
Training camp for the Kansas City Chiefs is coming up quick. Equipment manager's already there, making sure everything's ready for the team when they start showing up. But we had the whole deal with Orlando Brown Jr. earlier this week, or I guess late last week as far as Friday with the franchise tag. Team offered him a pretty good amount of money, said no. And I don't know if it was because 6 years wasn't long enough, the amount of money. But I thought, at least from my perspective, it was a pretty nice deal.
It was a great deal. And you might remember that a week ago this Thursday that Mitch, of course, doing the Chiefs rally for us, said, well, that 3 o'clock tomorrow, that's a big time. We'll sign him, and then everything will be fine. Mitch was thinking optimistically because Orlando Brown did not sign him. Hey, what does that mean? Well, the Chiefs, number one, offered him around $20 million a year, probably for about 4 years. Now, this guy's a big offensive lineman. He wants $25 million a year. And the Chiefs, according to the reports that have been filtering in, said, is he worth that? That's the highest amount of money for any offensive lineman. Is he that good? No, we can't come to an agreement that he is that good. So they said, okay, that's our offer. Orlando Brown said, nope. So what does it mean? Well, it means that Orlando Brown can only play for one team this year since he is the franchise player, and that's the Chiefs. He can only play for the Chiefs unless they trade him. But the chances of that are just about nil because under the NFL rules, if the Chiefs trade their franchise player, the other team to whom they trade him is mandated. They must give up 2 number 1 draft picks. And that ain't going to happen.
No, not for – you think the money is too much. The 2 number 1 picks is way too much.
So what will happen is that I suspect he'll probably miss a couple of weeks of training camp. Who wants to go up to St. Joseph when it's this hot? And they'll let him come back. He may miss the first game, maybe the second game, but eventually he will play because he's going to get $16.5 million.
Yeah, he's going to lose money if he doesn't.
And I think next year, well, at the end of the season, he'll declare himself a free agent, and I don't know what the Chiefs get out of that, but it won't be very much.
Well, you know, Danon and Mitch had a really good insight as far as the whole player, manager, agent situation, and Danon said it best because from a player's perspective, he's like, you know, as a kid, when you're playing college sports, you're getting like, what, $10 a day to eat on? You're not making anything. And then you trust someone to get you a deal, and all of a sudden this guy is responsible for literally making you a millionaire overnight. So all of these players, they give that to their agents and they trust them. And that's the thing, is that some players step up and say, look, I don't care. I want to be with this team. I want to make it work. And then some other players say, do what you must to get me paid.
Well, Mitch is right. That was the case. Now, it's changed a little bit with this nil coming in here because the players can opt for some pretty big deals, but not what he's looking for. Not anywhere near that.
No. Well, we'll see what happens, but overall, I think the team is looking pretty damn good going into St. Joe. And hopefully they bring enough Gatorade up there, man. I can't even, oh my God, it's going to be brutal. You've been to training camp many times up there. That hill, you know, on the backside, right on the field when that sun's coming down on you. Oh my goodness gracious.
I must admit, I have not been to St. Joe, but I was at Liberty many times with the Chiefs, and that was always fun because the players are on the relaxed side. Of course, back then, when they were at Liberty, that was the older level of the Chiefs, too. That wasn't today's particular genre.
Back then, you can get on the field and probably play catch with them if you wanted to.
I did.
And Ned got tackled a few times. All right, so everyone's got their opinion on the LIV Tour and the PGA drama, including a former president.
Yes, the former president is the Honorable Mr. Donald Trump. He came out with some comments yesterday, and now the casual fan is saying, what on earth does he have to do with any of this? What he did was he advised the PGA players, hey, pack your bags, go with this LIV Tour, take that money, have a big time and all that, because eventually there's going to be a merger. I do agree with him. I do think there will be a merger. I think that's what will settle it, but when it comes, Who knows? But what is Donald Trump doing advising golfers to go to a rival tour? Aha, a hidden agenda. Because Donald Trump and the PGA ain't exactly friends, folks, and here's why. Back in 2014 or 2015, I'm not sure what the year was, Trump and the PGA signed a contract. And the contract was for the PGA National Tournament, one of the majors that they have, to be held at his Bedminster, New Jersey golf course, which is where the LIV Tour will be next weekend. And it would have been this year. It was 2022 when the event was to be held. And it was all set. So along comes January 6th of this year, earlier. And you know what happened, folks. They had the riots in Washington, D.C. The next day, the PGA got together and said, oh, my God, we've got the PGA National at Bedminster. What kind of publicity is that going to be for us? We've got the taint is too great. We have to move it. So they voted unanimously to move it to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Southern Hills, which is where it was played. That didn't sit very well with Mr. Trump at all, who came right out and said, you have a binding contract with us, so forth and so on. You pay us off, or now, I must admit, I don't know what the final resolution was, if any, but they moved it out of there, and that has not registered very well with Mr. Trump at all, who said, don't let the PGA fool you. They're crooked. They're as corrupt as any organization. He really let them have it yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he did.
But a hidden agenda, that's why.
Oh, for sure. Well, thanks for giving us a peek behind the curtain there, Ned. So we do, obviously, it's that time of year where we're getting closer and closer to our own pro golf tournament here in town. When's that happen?
It tees off tomorrow morning, and fortunately for the early players, it'll tee off probably about 7 o'clock. They'll get the opportunity to play when it might be just a little bit cooler, because that weather forecast is rather dire for the 4 days of that tournament, which does conclude late Sunday afternoon. Boy, if late Sunday afternoon on that 72nd hole when they're making all the presentations and that sun is beaming down about 3 in the afternoon.
Brutal, man.
That'll be on the warm side. Anyway, the competition does begin. It should be a pretty good field of golfers who are competing. And keep in mind, folks, these players on the Korn Ferry Tour are not even a half a step. They're a quarter of a step away from making the big tour, the PGA, and you see them. The players who are on that PGA Tour now, and some on the LIV Tour, are all graduates of the Korn Ferry, or many of them are, and have done very well. Cam Smith, the individual who won the British Open, he was not a Korn Ferry guy because he's been playing pro golf for quite a while. But Zalatoris and some of these others, they all played here. And they all played at Highland Springs, and that's a way of identifying who they are and what they are and how good they are going to be.
Well, it's always a great thing for the area, but if you are going out to watch some golf, make sure and bring at least 5 gallons of water with you. Ned, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.